Fine? Okay. I hear an echo, but that means it's just me. Okay, good evening. We are live. Welcome to Beaumont City Council regular council meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025, here at 6 p.m. in City Council chambers. We begin our meeting as we call to order. Begin our meeting with our land acknowledgement. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and the cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continue to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we're all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people, and the land. Next on our agenda are two proclamations this evening. First of which is Bullying Awareness Pink Shirt Day, February 26, 2025. Whereas Bullying Awareness Day highlights Beaumont's commitment to a safe and inclusive community, and whereas acts of bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, intimidation, and violence have a profound effect on individuals' feelings of safety, self-worth, and ability to learn are unacceptable in a safe, caring, and orderly society. And whereas communities, workplaces, families, schools, individuals all have a critical role to play in modeling, teaching, and promoting socially responsible behavior. And whereas Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day, is an opportunity to actively promote respectful and kind behavior and to celebrate the actions of individuals, schools, and groups to address bullying. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim February 26, 2025 as Bullying Awareness Day, commonly called Pink Shirt Day, in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 25th of February, 2025. Our second proclamation is International Women's Day, March 8, 2025. Whereas the United Nations began observing International Women's Day in 1975 during International Women's Week, and whereas in Canada, women make up more than half of our population and is therefore a necessity to raise awareness about the need for women and young girls of the world to have equitable opportunities in employment and education. And whereas in Beaumont, we recognize the contributions of women to our community as entrepreneurs, decision makers, employees, and citizens. And whereas we call attention to their ability and willingness to contribute to Canada's economic, political, and social communities. And whereas for many among us, our future depends on the success of women in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim March 8th, 2025 as International Women's Day in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, 25th of February, 2025. On that note, I want to congratulate Councillors Barnhart and Councillor McCook, members of our women's community, obviously, for standing up for public office and serving your community, and encourage other women to do so in our community in the upcoming election in October. Well, there's another one coming up there. Hopefully have more female candidates. We'll see how it goes. So thank you for your contributions to our community in your role. Also, just note, Sam Monk of Swain, Councillor, is on vacation. So that leaves 6 of us on council. So just so if anybody's aware, should there be a tie vote on a motion, the motion is defeated. Motion must be carried by unanimous decision or by proper majority vote. It can't be a tie vote. That's how we do things. In case you're curious, people listening at home and people in the audience, in case you're here for the voting, that's how it works. Thank you. Next on our agenda, Madam Clerk, adopting the agenda. Are there any changes to our agenda this evening, Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I have control of my microphone now.
Okay.
We do not have any additions to the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please put the agenda on the screen for a member of council to move adoption of the agenda? Councillor Barnhart, would you care to move that? Oh, and Newkirk, care to make that motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, hang on.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd move that the February 25th, 2025 council agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Council, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process? And that motion carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk, do we have any open forum guests this evening? Your mic is on.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one open forum this evening. Mr. Fred Davis.
Mr. Davis, would you please join us at the table? Let me find your microphone for you. Hang on a second.
This one?
Yes, I can do it while you're in a moment or two. So Fred, welcome to council. The microphone is on. Open forum gives you 5 minutes to speak to council. If you have any questions for council, it's best to probably put those questions in a written form. We can get the answers back to you in writing to you at a later time. So if you ask your questions verbally, but we can't answer them tonight, we'll simply give you a written answer. You can send those questions to myself or a member of council at your convenience. You have 5 minutes, Fred.
Thank you very much for your time. I want to thank Rebecca and brain fart, I'm sorry.
Shalane?
There's yesterday for taking the time to talk to me on the phone. I'm so brain fart. Here to express my extreme frustration over the gross mismanagement of what's been going on 43rd Avenue over the last 4.5 months. I'd love somebody to explain to me why the water was shut off to my house with zero notice, zero notification. Luckily, I was away for the day. Came home about 4:30 in the afternoon, and this is about last October. And you know what a senior citizen does the first thing he walks in the house? And flush the toilet, no water comes up, no water in the taps, upstairs bathroom, downstairs bathroom, nowhere. You phone the emergency line, what the heck's going on? Finally got put through to a gentleman, and you know, you don't record these events, I'm sorry, I should have got names, but I didn't. He said, oh, we're doing water main repairs. That's why your water shut off. I said, okay, well, when will the water be turned back on? Oh, about 9 o'clock. Why wasn't I notified? Well, you should have been. Doesn't do me any good. It's not. So we can move forward. You call that a blunder, Miss Barnhart. You say, oh, things happen. Life moves on, right? We're getting too old to worry about this stuff. Well, I am. To fast forward a few weeks after that, when there's a 6-foot by 2.5-foot hole dug in front of my driveway with barricades blocking the driveway in. And I'm going out and I just noticed this. It's just as they're finishing off, these crews leaving. And what are you doing? Well, we have to put new bolts in the lines. Okay. When are the barriers coming down? Oh, in about a week. A week? How do I get my car out of the garage? There's a car in there? No, I use it for a meth lab. Of course there's a car in the garage. Why didn't you knock on the door and tell us to get the car the hell out of the garage before you started this work? I don't know, it's not my job. It's not your job? So anyways, you're gonna be back in a week, yeah? So these barriers blocked my driveway for a week. I couldn't move, and sure as God made little green apples, they were back in a week, Stephen. Picked the barriers up, put them on my lawn, and off they went. Threw a little bit of gravel in the hole, off they went. And I'm catching them as I'm leaving. Aren't you gonna pave this over? Oh, we'll be back in a week. Why don't you pave it over now? Oh, we'll be back in a week. Well, they weren't, and luckily as time went on, it snowed. Get some ice on the road. This hole kind of fills itself in. It's a nuisance. It's not okay. And then come along around the middle of January, we'll circle back to the hole. You have a piece of sidewalk cleaning equipment break down on the sidewalk between my house and my neighbor's. There's a public sidewalk. All of a sudden I have a tow truck in the middle of my driveway with the deck lowered down onto my lawn. What are you guys doing? Well, that equipment broke down. Well, I don't know. Wouldn't it be a smart idea to maybe just back this tow truck up to the sidewalk and do a straight tow onto this equipment? That's what I would do, Steve. Oh, well. But no, they do somehow push it down the sidewalk, do a right angle, drag the thing across my yard onto this thing, pick it up, and I'm looking at it. You're going to clean this mess up, right? Little chuckle, off they go. Sure enough, come back from the dog taking me for a walk. Guess who gets to clean up the mess? Now I'm pissed. So off I go to Public Works. God, very nice young lady, and again, didn't get the name, should have, didn't. What's going on? The answer didn't shock me, Ms. McCook. Didn't shock me at all. You have to remember that these are kids operating this. We can't afford full-time staff. So this is part-time staff cleaning the sidewalks, and we're contracting out digging the hole. When's the hole going to be filled in? We don't know. So now this hole is going to be a problem because now we have a spring thaw. So the hole starts sinking. People are complaining. My understanding is there's been rims bent over that hole on cars hitting it. Tires have certainly gone flat. People are complaining about this hole. So what does the city do? They come out, they fill it with gravel and sand again. Now, I'm not a contractor, I don't know anything about this, but I'm thinking if you're gonna fill a hole with sand and gravel, shouldn't you have a packer there, pack it down? Make it firm? I would. That's what I would do. But no, their answer is to stomp on it.
Okay, Fred, your 5 minutes are up. Do you have any specific questions we can help you with, or you can send some questions to me?
I would like to finish the
I know
story.
you've been venting, and that's okay. It's part of the process to hear from our residents, but we have a very big agenda this evening, so your 5 minutes has completed. Do you wish to send some questions to me or a member of
Yeah, I want to know why there's
council?
no money in the budget to fill a hole, as I was told again today when they came back.
Okay, no problem. Do you want to send me an email to that effect, and I'll have that question answered for you in writing?
Sure.
Okay. Do you have my email address, or I can get it to you?
Text it to me.
Okay, I'll track you down after our meeting is over, if not tonight, tomorrow, and we can have a cup of coffee, or we can have a quick conversation, and I'll send you an email, okay?
Or I can come back in 2 weeks' time, we can finish this story.
Well, you have to have a certain topic to come to council to talk about certain topics. So you've discussed this topic already. So let's just have a cup of coffee or an email, we'll figure things out for you, okay?
Yeah, all right. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Davis.
I'm sorry if I was rude, but I am mad because now these rocks are coming off this hole and pitting the back of my truck on my
I
truck.
appreciate that. I will work with you, administration, get the answers you need, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Davis. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Fred. Madam Clerk, would you please put the consent agenda on the screen, please? And would you please review the consent agenda before I ask members of council for any additions or deletions? Sorry, not additions, Laura.
Thank you, Mayor. Read out the consent agenda just to make it easier for council just to pass the motion. Item 4 on the agenda, that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5.1, regular council meeting minutes, that council accept the meeting minutes of the February 11th, 2025 regular council meeting as presented. Item 7.1, letter of support, that the mayor on behalf of council sign the letter of support for Bow Meadows School to apply for applicable grant applications to help secure funding for a new playground as presented in attachment 1 of the February 25th, 2025 agenda. Item 8.3, bylaw 1073-25, municipal policing committee bylaw, first, second, and third reading. And that the bylaw be given first, second consideration for third reading, and be given third reading, and that Councillor Natalen Boss be appointed to the Municipal Planning Commission pursuant to bylaw 1073-25, effective March 1st, 2025. And item 13.1, the regional initiatives update, that the February 25th, 2025 regional initiatives update be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Penrod, you have a comment on the consent agenda. Oh, hang on. Your mic is on.
Thanks, Mayor Daniluk. I think part of what's happening is when we buzz in, we're not going into queue, so we're not getting that little green light. So when you go to activate our mics, it's turning them off.
Okay, that's
Just request that item 8.3 be removed from the consent agenda.
8.3. My mic. Any further changes to the consent agenda from any members of council? Seeing none, would you please activate the voting for the revised consent agenda?
Mayor, sorry, could you please, did you have a councillor move that motion?
Oh, pardon me. I'll move the consent agenda as amended. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please initiate the voting process? And that carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of the revised consent agenda. Thank you, Council. Moving on to our, that's already on, 6.1, bylaw 1065-25, Innovation Park Area Structure Plan, public hearing, second and third reading. Madam Clerk, at this time, would you please review the public hearing procedure? And we'll start with the public hearing on bylaw 1065-25.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome.
I am going to go ahead and do the procedures for both of the public hearings that we have this evening. Should we have anyone come to the council chambers prior to the second public hearing, I will read them out again. The February 25th, 2025 City of Beaumont public hearings for Bylaw 1065-25 Innovation Park Area Structure Plan, as well as Bylaw 1066-25 Elon Neighborhood Law Amending Bylaw. Public hearings are an opportunity to advertise bylaws or certain resolutions. I'll spend a few moments providing an overview of the public hearing process. We've been accepting written submissions in the weeks preceding the public hearing. The deadline for written submissions was noon on February 24th, 2025. All written submissions received by the deadline have been provided to council in advance of the hearing for the review and also available for public inspection on the agenda page of the city's website. Registration to present at the public hearing by electronic means was required by 4 p.m. on February 24th, 2025. Registration to present in person is permitted in advance of the public hearing or at the public hearing. Mayor Daniluk, so far we do not have any registered speakers for today's public hearing, and we do not have anyone participating by electronic means. The procedure for public hearing is as follows. Administration will first make the presentation, and then council will be invited to ask questions of clarification. Next, members of public who are registered to speak or those who are present here to be invited to make the respective presentations. If anyone here has not registered to speak, please raise your hand and we'll get your name and add you to the list of presenters. Thank you. Noted. Council will first hear from those who are in favor of the proposed bylaw, then those who are opposed, and then anyone else who wishes to be heard. Presenters will have up to 5 minutes to present, and then council will have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification. When it is your turn to make your presentation, please ensure your microphone and audio is working and state your full name. There is a sign-in at the front as well that you can fill out with your full name and putting it on the record before your presentation. Your 5 minutes will start when your presentation starts. There will be a clock on the screen in front of you, and you can track your 5 minutes of allotted time. Again, please remain at the microphone once you're done presenting, since council may ask you some questions following your presentation. Once council has heard all the presentations, the public hearing will be closed and the regular session of council will reconvene so that council may make the decision on the matter. On the final note, the city's public hearings are recorded at a webcast, which can be made available for viewing at the city's website. Thank you, Mayor Daniluk, and I do wish for the gentleman who would like to, if he could please indicate which public hearing bylaw he is here to speak for.
Mr. Gill, are you speaking on this bylaw or the second bylaw, 1066-25? Which one are you speaking to? The first one? Thank you very much. Mr. Kashmir Gill, not just yet, sir. We're just getting you registered for the public hearing. Make sure you have a chance to present and speak. So, Madam Clerk, the public hearing is now open, and we'll begin with our administration's presentation, followed by clarifying questions from council, then into the public hearing thereafter. So, administration, which chair are you sitting at? I'll make sure you get the right. I really hate this. Just throw your mic on, if you could, please. I can see. Okay, hang on. I see it there. Your microphone's on now. Thank you, Ms. Tarnowski? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Daniluk and members of council. I'm Katrina Tarnowski, and I'm representing administration's long-range planning team, along with the manager of long-range planning, Joanna Swang, and our long-range engineer, Trevor Moninka. This evening's presentation follows my report on January 28th, where council gave first reading to bylaw 1065-25, the Innovation Park Area Structure Plan bylaw. This application was submitted by ISL Engineering and Land Services Limited on behalf of the City of Beaumont. The Innovation Park project was initiated in response to the need to increase employment lands in Beaumont and balance the tax base to a more sustainable split between residential and commercial and industrial lands. The Area Structure Plan, or ASP lands, located in the southeast part of the city, were officially designated for future business park and light industrial uses in the Municipal Development Plan that was adopted in 2019. And over the last several years, administration has worked with the applicant to conduct the necessary studies, engagement, and land use planning to produce this ASP, for which the application was received in December 2024. The plan area is located south of Highway 625 and extends until the municipality's southern boundary with Leduc County. It is also bounded by Range Road 241 on its eastern edge and Highway 814 on its western edge. The land is currently under agricultural production, and it is also surrounded by either agricultural land, undeveloped land that has been stripped and graded, or the commercial area situated northwest of the plan in Place Chaleroux. However, development in the two neighborhoods to the north, Beauval Park, Beaumont Lakes south, and Azure Lakeview is proceeding quickly, and we will see new residential and commercial developments in those areas. Finally, the area immediately to the west is also designated for future business park and light industrial. The Innovation Park ASP is envisioned as an industrial business and employment hub in the city that facilitates trade and economic activity via its connections to the regional transportation network. There's also a focus on the retention of natural features in the plan to create an interlinked parks, open spaces, and trail system for passive and active recreation uses. The development concept map shown on this slide displays how land uses are integrated to create the Innovation Park. Within the business park and industrial uses, there are three distinct areas. That includes a multidisciplinary campus, a safety and educational training area, and flex business industrial. The first two of these policy areas will house the Alberta Motor Transport Association's safety campus. There are currently 2 designated stormwater management facilities, although a third pond will likely need to be developed in the AMTA safety campus area at a location to be determined in the future. Municipal reserve is used to preserve 2 existing tree stands, as well as linear parks that connect the plan's open spaces into a cohesive whole. Finally, the environmental reserve designation will be used to preserve the large wetland complex in the southeast corner of the ASP. The Innovation Park ASP complies with the guiding policy documents for the City of Beaumont, including the Municipal Development Plan, Transportation Master Plan, Council's Strategic Plan, our Utilities and Stormwater Master Plan, the Land Use Bylaw, and several regional strategies, including the Intermunicipal Planning Framework, Edmonton Metropolitan Region Growth Plan, and the Regional Agricultural Master Plan. This includes compliance with diverse and compatible land uses, compact and contiguous development, and the creation of complete communities, as well as accommodation of agricultural uses. The plan is consistent with the land use concept set out in the MDP, where the map shows 2 character areas, business park in the northern half along Highway 625, and light industrial in the southern half. The business park area is meant to develop as a campus-like setting with offices, warehouses, and light manufacturing facilities where activities are carried out indoors. The light industrial area sees slightly more intensive industrial uses such as warehousing, storage, manufacturing, and some limited commercial. The plan contemplates the same kinds of uses, though it divides them along a more north-south axis rather than the east-west as presented in the MDP. The plan was also evaluated against the Intermunicipal Planning Framework, or IPF, future land use concept. The IPF is an agreement between the City of Beaumont, the City of Edmonton, and Leduc County to collaborate and coordinate land use planning and infrastructure servicing in a study area along their shared boundaries. The Innovation Park ASP falls within the purple employment area, and much of the plan area also must meet the policies set out for a high aesthetic standard, low nuisance uses area. This includes locating uses that are considered low nuisance, meaning that they have limited or no noise, odor, visual, or other nuisance impacts beyond the property line, as well as screening outdoor activities from view and using noise attenuation features and buffering along areas adjacent to residential properties. The plan includes policies addressing these requirements in the ASP document. As mentioned earlier, there are 3 business park and industrial policy areas within the ASP. The first is the multidisciplinary campus, located along the northwest side of the plan area. Development in this area will focus on an office for transportation safety and industry research for alternative energy vehicles, as well as other supporting business industrial uses. To conform to the IPF, uses will be developed with a high aesthetic architectural standard as implemented through the Beaumont Urban Design Guidelines. The second policy area is for safety and educational training, and much of this area has been planned to accommodate a vehicle testing track and accessory buildings. The area may also be used for research, development, and training of public service agencies such as emergency, police, and fire response units. Most of this area will have to also comply with the high aesthetic standard, low nuisance use standards. Special attention will be given by the Development Authority to the proposed driving track to ensure that off-site nuisances such as noise are mitigated through a variety of measures. The third policy area, Flex Business Industrial, was designed to accommodate a range of different industrial development types, with some supporting commercial opportunities integrated with pathways and ponds. The ASP specifically highlights target industries such as agri-food, agri-tech, clean energy, healthcare, flexible office research and development, showrooms, and supply chain warehouses. Existing tree stands and a large wetland will be retained to preserve habitat areas for vegetation and wildlife and to offer opportunities for recreation in this area, both for people employed in the Innovation Park and for residents using Beaumont's interconnected trail system. Municipal reserve will be used for 2 existing tree stands in the plan area and for linear parks, totaling 4.9% of the developable area. The Municipal Government Act allows the city to require up to 10% of the area to be dedicated as MR during subdivision, so the remaining 5.1% will likely be collected as cash in lieu. Environmental reserve, which is a designation that is used by municipalities to preserve and protect important natural areas, will be used for the 6-hectare wetland in the southwest portion of the plan area. This will restrict development, encourage naturalization, and integrate the wetland into the area's trail network, and it will connect it to the nearby stormwater ponds. A traffic impact assessment was conducted to support the ASP and assess development over two time horizons. A 5-year horizon to 2028 corresponding to the planned opening day for the AMTA Safety Campus, and a 20-year horizon to 2043 for full build-out of the ASP area. An internal industrial collector road forms the basis of the internal roadway connecting the different policy areas. The roadway will be designed with a complete streets approach, with either sidewalks on both sides of the street or a sidewalk on one side and multi-use bike path on the other. The other important item to highlight is that the plan area is bounded by Highway 625, which is a high-load corridor on the north side. ISL and the City of Beaumont have worked closely with the province and Leduc County to ensure that the primary purpose of the highway as a goods transfer route has been preserved in the design of the ASP. Traffic disruption has been mitigated by providing for only one direct access point to Highway 625, noted by the yellow circle on the slide. It's restricted to a right-in, right-out T intersection east of Highway 814. It also locates other accesses to the plan area on surrounding arterials, one on Highway 814 and one on Range Road 241, marked with the circles with an A in them. And then proposing up to 3 below-grade pedestrian crossings to connect the plan area with the neighborhoods to the north. Within the next 5 years, the traffic impact assessment anticipates that some improvements will be required, including the addition of traffic signalization at the intersection of Highway 625 and Range Road 243, and turn bays at the Highway 814 access point. Servicing will be provided in an efficient and economic manner, consistent with Beaumont's Utilities and Stormwater Master Plan. Wastewater and water servicing will connect across Highway 625 into the Beaumont Lake South system, and with additional water connections into the Azure Lakeview neighborhood and up 50th Street. Two major upgrades that will be required to support the Innovation Park development will be increasing the pump size and reservoir at the main pump house and upsizing of the Aero Utilities Southeast Regional Trunk Sewer. Detailed analyses of the servicing strategy have been provided via servicing concept reports that are outlined in the technical review section at the end of attachment 2. We can track public engagement for this application through several phases, beginning in April 2023. There were 2 rounds of engagement taking place from April to May 2023, then June to July 2023, where the applicant completed online surveys, one-on-one interviews with adjacent landowners, and in-person public open houses. Following the submission of the ASP in December of last year, a 3rd round of engagement took place involving circulation to external agencies and internal departments, a web notice, 2 online public engagement sessions that were advertised by the city. Since first reading last month, administration has published information about today's public hearing for 2 weeks in the Beaumont News through mailed letters, emails, and a website notice. This evening's public hearing offers affected members of the public the opportunity to voice their thoughts on the ASP to council before the bylaw is read for a 2nd and 3rd time. Feedback during the engagement process was captured in what we heard reports, and administration reviewed comments both in favor and expressing concern about the proposed plan. Some of the most salient and repeated comments included that the ASP provided an opportunity for much-needed businesses to offer local goods and services that the city does not yet have, that it helps to balance the city's tax base, and that it supports local job creation. While some concerns that came up were about the impact of development on traffic volumes in the area, some comments expressed a desire for more green spaces, and there was some concern about the city's financial investment in the project and how that might impact future tax levies. Following our review of the ASP and accompanying studies, administration has identified that the Innovation Park ASP encourages development that diversifies the tax base and provides local employment opportunities. It strengthens employment growth along an important high-load corridor. It preserves natural and environmental assets. It establishes a framework for logical, contiguous, efficient, and economical development and infrastructure servicing, and it conforms with higher-order regional and municipal plans, policies, and strategies. And for these reasons, administration recommends that following the public hearing, council give bylaw 1065-25 2nd and 3rd reading. Thank you for your consideration, and at this time, administration welcomes questions from council prior to the public.
Administration, before I go to the public hearing for the public. Seeing none, thank you. This time, open the public hearing to members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the area structure plan. Mr. Gill, are you speaking in favor? Please join us at the table and take a moment, put your name down, if you don't mind, on the sheet there. And then you have 5 minutes, sir, to speak in favor of the bylaw. Begin when you're ready. Please begin when you're ready.
Mayor Danlick, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Kashmir Gill, and Beaumont has been my home since 2017. I chose Beaumont for many of the reasons that most people did: its small size, charm, and its location. I also saw potential, so I was absolutely thrilled when the notion of an innovation park was floated about 6 or 7 years ago as a vehicle to create opportunities for business and economic diversification, including high-paying jobs, ultimately with an aim to reduce the tax burden on residents by attracting and growing businesses that shift the tax base towards the commercial side. I commend those members of the current and previous councils who took the bold step to make an investment in purchasing the land for the Innovation Park. As someone who has been intimately involved in innovation for more than 30 years, I know that this is a long road. I remain a strong proponent of business and economic diversification in our city. But I also have a few concerns about the pace of developments thus far. I'm also a bit concerned that the path forward appears to be challenging, especially given that it is contingent on the major anchor, Alberta Motor Transport Association, securing financial backing from the province. I have frequently asked if there is a plan B in place. I often wonder if we are missing opportunities for private investment, or if the park should be developed by the private sector, either alone or as a public-private partnerships. Finally, it is my personal belief that the name Innovation Park does not resonate well with many residents. At a professional level, I would say that the word innovation is frequently overused and sometimes misused. Specifically, what is being proposed for the area can only be loosely tied to the notion of what an innovation park should be. Perhaps something simple as a Beaumont Business Park or Beaumont Enterprise District might be better suited. In closing, I remain a strong advocate and supporter of this initiative, and I'm available to help in any way that I can to make our beautiful community sustainable and stronger for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Appreciate your comments. Any questions, members of council for Mr. Gill? If not, thank you for coming and do appreciate your opinion and the support for the bylaw. And your comments in general, too, are very much appreciated. Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw? Seeing none. Any members of the public wishing to speak against the bylaw? Seeing none. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak to the bylaw who deems themselves to be affected by the bylaw, either for or against? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, I think we can declare the public hearing closed. Is that correct? Thank you. Public hearing is now closed. I will then, would you please put second reading motion on the screen? I'll make that motion, and council is then free to debate second reading as we see fit. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I move that the bylaw 1065 reading. With that, open up the floor to members of council with questions of administration or concerns or thoughts on second reading of this bylaw. Councilman Talabas. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just I guess, general question for administration. More so on the infrastructure side of things. Obviously, it's noted that there's going to be a requirement for quite a few upgrades. Just wondering what kind of plan is in place to capture, obviously, some of these costs and the upgrades that are required. Noted here is obviously upgrades will be required on the main pump house and reservoir, as well as the CERTs, and then also the traffic signalization. So just curious as to what that plan kind of looks like should this proceed.
Your microphone is on. There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the question. Servicing is intended to move forward in a logical manner. So we understand that with AMTA coming on board, they are seeking a provincial grant for some of the infrastructure needed to do the initial servicing of the site. You mentioned the main pump house and reservoir. That project is currently underway, with administration having that in the budget previously due to life cycle upgrades at that location. And the Arrow CERTS sewer is also the upgrades are also being looked at by Arrow Utilities, and just in general as they're triggered by growth in Beaumont. So those have been identified through the servicing reports as needed to support Innovation Park. They are already in progress or underway.
Perfect. Thank you. So just clarification and some of that initial cost potentially being covered by the funding from the provincial government, that would be captured, or that would capture some of these requirements. Would that include the signalization? I know that's a bit more down the road as well.
Yes, signalization, which I believe, depending on which intersection you're looking at, would probably be triggered within the next 5 years or so, specifically at Highway 814 and 625, 50th Street there. Those are likely going to be under the offsite levy program, as they're driven by more than just a single development, and it will depend on the overall pace of growth within Beaumont. So we are capturing those projects in the offset levy project as we're moving forward on that one right now. So funding for that would be through that program.
Perfect, thanks. I just want to mention, I appreciate the thoroughness and obviously a project of this size. Last thing we obviously want to do is run into additional costs that we didn't expect, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newkirk, followed by Councillor McCook. Steve, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. Just want a little bit more commentary on the acknowledgement of Leduc County's concerns around maintenance of the high load corridor. Just could you reaffirm the conversations that have happened and just the fact that the concerns that Leduc County had brought forward have been considered all the way through the project? Could you speak to that a little bit more, please?
Microphone's still on.
Thank you for the question. Certainly, during the development of the ASP and the development of the transportation impact assessment, we consulted with Leduc County as well as Alberta Transportation Economic Corridors. With the high load corridor, there are requirements for maintaining the right-of-way clear for large and heavy loads to make their way from a Nisku industrial area out to Highway 21. What was discussed during the development of the ASP essentially was maintaining that ability for traffic to move. So no impacts are expected to Highway 625. We have added the right-in, right-out access as shown on the plan from the north side of the plan area onto Highway 625. The restriction being right-in, right-out only. All directional access is not permitted there because of the potential impacts to high-load traffic. In talking with Leduc County, we've made adjustments to the design and will be making adjustments to the design through detailed design to make sure that access, again, maintains the free flow movements for high load traffic.
Yeah, and just thank you to administration for some valuable dialogue on that because, Leduc County did come pretty strong, hard and fast with those concerns and we heard them. So thank you. Another question, Mayor?
Please proceed.
Around feedback and the feedback that was noted, throughout the process, did we receive feedback from the direct adjacent residents, or do we know that, like east, south, west, like do we know who we all received feedback from, or is it kind of aggregated responses at this point?
Yes, thank you for that question, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Yes, during the initial plan development, we had open house and we have one-on-one meetings with each of the property owners, and they have their input into the even the first draft of the plan. So we consider everything we heard from the property owners, the general public, and then come up with this plan. So yes, we have considered every single comment that we received.
Yeah, I think that's good news to just show that there was some real open dialogue with those adjacent landowners. Thank you. One more?
Sure.
Yeah. In the design, tell me if this is too detailed of a question for right now. In the design, it's noted that the stormwater management ponds are located directly on the highway corridor. Also, it is noted that the stormwater management will be designed to avoid runoff from highway infrastructure. So, the skill and technical advice and construction is well handled, but I just raised that runoff from highways over time with salt put on highways does cause concern. So I'm sure that they've connected all those dots and that they're noting that, but I'm also sure that careful consideration on the location of those stormwater management ponds occurred before putting them there. So just, some comments on those ponds and the construction and the timing and, the carefulness that will happen to make sure there's no runoff off the highways into those ponds.
Yes, thank you for the comments and question. And you're certainly right. The plan did carefully consider the drainage for the plan area adjacent highway. Drainage from Highway 625 is managed within the highway right away, so within the drainage ditches that you see on either side, and conveyed appropriately. So the stormwater facilities within the Innovation Park plan area will only be accepting runoff from within the plan area itself. So typically, the grading will work so that the highway runoff will not encroach onto the plan area lands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. I just wanted to kind of affirm that, so thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor, followed by Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of my questions have been answered. Just to follow a little bit along Councillor Van Newkirk's points, with the 4.14 hectares of environmental reserve and proposing integrating the wetlands into the open space network, how will we or can we ensure that the stormwater management and future development don't negatively impact the wetland health and local biodiversity over time? I know this is something that has come up more often, and this is some concerns that have come forward more and more as we start to grow a bit more as well and take up some of this land.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a very good one. I do believe the ASP states that during detail design, particularly of the east half of the ASP area, they will need to do a detailed water balance study to evaluate how the wetland will function and to ensure that the development adjacent does not detract from that water balance, so that the wetland essentially is maintained. The wetland itself isn't integrated into the stormwater management facilities because of the drainage patterns. It actually drains to the south. But they'll be kind of a complementary function. Maintaining the wetland does help mitigate some of the flooding concerns that would happen along the Blanc Canal as it drains that direction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. And then just one more around the municipal reserve. So can you just, I guess, expand a little bit? So some of the notes from some of the engagement was that there was a desire for green space. Can you just speak a little bit more as to why we only dedicated the 4.9% versus the full 10?
Mr. Wong?
I can try to answer that question. Thank you, Councillor McCook, for that question. I believe it is part of the land use concept, and we just balance out the actual land use because it's a business and light industrial park, and also including the wetland in the overall design. So basically, I believe that there will be more than 10%, like of the natural areas. So I think that is balancing out with that, and with the park, the linear park, along with the wetland, and then the tree stand, 2 tree stands in the one in the north and one in the south to complement each other, because the west quarter, because the land use is dominated by the AMTA users, so everything, all the recreation stuff will be on the eastern quarter. So I think it is a balancing act, and also the trail will be accessing to the north to the Beaumont at large, this Beaumont proper. Yep. So.
Okay, thank you. So the wetlands aren't part of the MR?
No, it's environmental reserve. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Penrod. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for all the information. It's quite thorough, and I know it's been going on for many years. My question is around risk management. So it's been outlined very clearly in the report that there's probably two big areas. One is the provincial funding, which may alter the plan, as well as the other is the if AMTA is not able to continue or chooses not to continue for some reason. Could the administration, from their point of view, just outline what might be the plan B, and what timeline would we be looking at if there was to be a plan B?
I can start answering this question, Councillor Barnhart, and probably I may need some help from senior management. So basically what we are planning in this plan is to have this anchor tenants that will be occupying the west quarter sections, and with that will be to incentivize the eastern quarter for future industrial developments. And you asked about what if the government is not able to fulfill their, I wouldn't say obligation, but the funding. Yes, there would have to be Plan B, And my guess would be we have to come back and reevaluate the plan. And how do we plan the west quarter? Because the east quarter would be more or less the same. It's just the west quarter that we have to adjust. So.
Mr. Wong, I think Mr. Schwartz wants to answer that as well with some background. Mr.
Yeah,
Schwartz.
and exactly as Johannes is saying, is that if the campus is not built, then there will have to be some changes to this ASP. But we're being approached on a regular basis by other organizations that are interested in that property. Right now, it's tied up with the sale to AMTA, which is not directly connected to the Alberta government, but the desire is to absolutely get the 38 million for the servicing, and that would be the ideal state and fit in this ASP. The other option, Plan C, if you will, is to sell the land to another developer, and that was, if you recall, this council bought that land on that, with that in their back pocket, as they still own that asset. So there's a Plan B and a Plan C.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I appreciate the report and all the work that's gone into it. Several councillors have named some of my questions. Just want to underline and appreciate the words Councillor Van Newkirk said just around the attention to detail. I just highlight the changing environment that we're in too. Those intermunicipal planning frameworks and good relationships with our neighbors just got a whole lot more important now that the situation of the EMRB is changing and that's becoming more public. We're starting to hear that kind of echoing around the community. What does this look like? How does this affect different developments? So glad to hear that due diligence has been done all along the way just to double secure all of our planning. I'll look at Exhibit 10. Which is referenced on page 52 of the report. That's a proposed cross-section of a collector road, and part of what I appreciate in the report is that there's nothing like this currently in Beaumont, and so some of the work is being done to say, what does this look like now that we have a business light industrial area? Does the size of 24 meters that's contemplated here take into account the increased percentage of large vehicle traffic within Innovation Park ASP? And in addition to that, the desire to accommodate pedestrian and cycling lanes as active modes of transportation?
Thank you for the question. Yes, as you mentioned, Beaumont doesn't currently have an industrial cross-section, collector cross-section in our general design standards. It is something that we are looking at undertaking and bringing that into the fold. For now, though, what's represented in the ASP is a typical industrial collector cross-section that you might see in another adjacent county. So it has good basis for its use here. It's been tested in similar environments. In terms of, available access for larger vehicles that we might see in the Innovation Park. The cross-section does also have allowances for pedestrian and active transportation access to it, integration into the trail network.
Just out of curiosity, that 24-meter cross-section, how does that compare to more residential cross-sections?
With regards to the 24 meters, it's roughly equivalent to what we'd call like a primary collector cross-section. So some of the larger roads that you'd see throughout the community, 50 kilometers an hour, center line type thing. Not quite the arterial standard, but certainly enough room for two vehicles with parking on either side to fit.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to look at page 67. Mentioned in the report is the MDP thinking about future disposition of this land, talks about an arrangement, kind of a north-south axis, and you mentioned in the report that we've shifted here in what's proposed to an east-west axis. Just wondered if you could give us a little bit of rationale around why that change was necessary, just in the interest of when we have these higher order plans, we don't want to be deviating from them undoing good work that's been done previously, but I assume there's good reasons in this case.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So with the MDP, I think it sets out a very general picture of proposed land uses for the community 5, 10, 15 years down the line. So we don't really know yet what's going to be going there. But the split between putting the business park on the north and the light industrial on the south was in relation to having those lower nuisance uses closer to the road right of way, so that as people are driving by, they're not seeing the kind of higher industrial, the more intensive uses, which are located further to the south, away from kind of the primary roadways. The plan, the Innovation Park ASP does achieve this in the way that it locates its different the different areas. There were the three that were kind of the different industrial use areas, so that it's still making sure that the way or the uses that are located along the roadways are adhering to a higher aesthetic value or low nuisance use. And that the ones further away are able to have, for instance, discretionary outdoor storage, for instance. So the principle that we were trying to achieve in the MDP is still being maintained in this plan. We're just now at a more granular level of what we foresee in the development, so we're able to kind of position it more specifically within the 2 quarter sections that we've got.
Thank you, appreciate that. And I guess if you're listening from home and want a visual representation of that, you can find it on page 83 of the report, the PDF report. One last question, if I could, Mayor?
Sure.
Just looking at page 88, which is actually, you just had it up in your, this methodology somewhat. Is administration satisfied that the City of Beaumont has gone above and beyond the minimum requirements for community engagement, especially considering that disruption through the postal strike?
Thank you. So with this instance, we did, there were still landowners that were directly adjacent that had been engaged through the process that we emailed the information to directly. So the ones that were most impacted and engaged through the process were still notified directly one-on-one, just via email instead of mail. And in addition, we did host those 2 public online engagement sessions during the period where it was being circulated and the postal strike took place. So that was advertised on the website and the paper. People had the opportunity to be aware, come learn more about it, and provide their feedback in a way that we don't typically do for a lot of other plans. So I think we did try to compensate by engaging people online as we were able to during that period.
I've certainly seen those additional efforts and have appreciated the many and various ways that I've seen administration kind of raise the bar on community consultation on this. This plan has the ability to radically change our community, and so we want to hear from everyone as we move into it. Really appreciate your work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further comments from members of council with questions or anything else, we'll move to the vote on second reading. Would you please initiate the voting process on second reading? Ms. Barnhart? I saw you do it, but it didn't, oh, I have it now. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. That motion is passed 6-0 in favor of the motion. Thank you, Council. With that, I'll move third reading. Madam Clerk, would you please put the third reading motion on the screen, please? Thank you. I'll move that bylaw 1065-25 Innovation Park Area Structure Plan be given third reading. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, would you please initiate the voting process? Council, would you please vote on third reading? Thank you, Council. It also carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of the motion of third reading. Thank you, Council. Next on our agenda is Elan Neighborhood 1 East Commercial Parcel Land Use Bylaw amending bylaw, public hearing, second and third reading. Madam Clerk, I see no members of the public who have come in since we gave the instructions on public hearing, so we can proceed to public hearing, can we not?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we could just go ahead if you would like to open the public hearing now.
That's what we'll do. With that, the public hearing is open. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak in favor of the motion, of the bylaw, pardon me? Seeing none, any members of the public in attendance who wish to speak against the bylaw?
Mayor,
Madam Clerk.
sorry, if I may, for procedure, administration would present the bylaw first prior to
Oh, yeah.
going into the opposition versus in favor.
Sorry, I kinda-
And then a opportunity for the applicant to speak, should the applicant wish to speak this evening or
Sure.
here to answer questions. Yes.
Okay, I have my notes backwards here. So with that, what I just said, disregard. Just wind back a few minutes. We'll start with Ms. Tarnowski presenting on bylaw 1066-25, then we'll go to the public hearing. Ms. Tarnowski, you have the floor.
6-25, Elan Neighborhood 1 East Commercial Parcel Land Use Bylaw Amending Bylaw. In attendance this evening is a member from Investec Consulting Limited who submitted this redistricting application on behalf of 1920528 Alberta Limited. They're available to answer any questions from council following administration's presentation. This presentation also follows my report on January 28th, where council gave first reading to this bylaw. So the purpose of the bylaw was to redistrict the property at 24306 Township Road 505 from the Agricultural Holdings District to the Commercial District. The Agricultural Holdings District is intended to support rural agricultural activities prior to the transitioning of land use to a more urban-style development, whereas the proposed commercial district is geared towards providing employment opportunities through various commercial and office uses. The dotted red line on the map shows the redistricting boundary. This slide shows an overview of the site context within Elan Neighborhood 1. Development of low-density residential lots is now taking place to the north of the site. And there is previously developed low-intensity residential to the east across Range Road 243 in the Eaglemont Heights neighborhood. Directly adjacent to the west is the parcel that was approved for redistricting to commercial in October of last year and would ideally be consolidated with the subject parcel of today's bylaw. There's also a small parcel in the southwest corner, which has an Apex Utilities substation. This is not part of the redistricting area, but Apex is aware of the application and has not expressed opposition. The site is bounded on the south by Township Road 505 or 50th Avenue. So this shows the redistricting boundary overlaid onto the Elan Neighborhood 1 structure plan, land use context map. The redistricting area aligns with the location of a neighborhood scale commercial development along the arterial roads of 50th Avenue and Range Road 243. The subject parcel may be consolidated, as I mentioned, with the adjacent future commercial parcel to the west in order to expand this development and allow for more efficient servicing and access from a single point along Park Réunion Way. In our evaluation of this redistricting application, administration considered several things: whether it complies with the land use bylaw, whether it aligns with higher level plans and policies, and whether the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding context. So the proposed commercial district will meet the development intent of this parcel, which is providing employment opportunities through commercial and office uses. The proposed commercial district also requires no minimum residential density and restricts lot coverage to 40% and building height to 4 stories. The redistricting aligns with all higher order plans and policies, including the Municipal Development Plan, Elan Area Structure Plan, and Elan Neighborhood Structure Plan, which all designate the redistricting site as commercial. And finally, administration believes the development is compatible with its surrounding context. The transition to commercial from the surrounding low-density residential development is appropriate, and the Elan ASP includes a policy that requires the provision of adequate buffering between commercial and adjacent residential development, including appropriate setbacks, landscaping, and screening measures. These will be addressed at the time of a development permit application. The parcel is also directly adjacent to another commercial parcel and is located across 50th Avenue from another future commercial parcel of a similar size. This whole area is meant to function as a small employment node that offers services to nearby neighborhoods. The proposed redistricting was assessed by engineering for functionality against the transportation and servicing reports and studies that were submitted as part of the Elan Neighborhood Structure Plan application package in 2018. This includes a transportation impact analysis, hydraulic network analysis, and a neighborhood design report. On the traffic side, the existing access to the parcel, shown at letter A, will be closed off when the parcel is redeveloped, and future access should exist from Park Reuni Way, indicated at letter B. Alternatively, there's also a possibility for the site to be accessed off of Range Road 243. Utility tie-ins exist on Park Reuni Way, and consolidating the subject parcel with its neighboring commercial parcel is the ideal method of connecting infrastructure to this site. However, an easement will be required if no consolidation takes place. Circulation of the redistricting initially took place from March to April 2024 to affected landowners within a 100-meter radius, to impacted agencies, and to internal city departments. The application was placed on hold at the request of the applicant until late November, so was recirculated in December due to the length of time that had passed. Since first reading of bylaw 1066-25 in January, administration has placed advertisements for the public hearing in the February 7th and 14th editions of the Beaumont News. Additionally, we have posted notice on the city's website, emailed external agencies, and mailed adjacent landowners. The public hearing will take place following this presentation. Administration supports the redistricting application because it is compatible with the surrounding planned future residential and commercial development. It follows the intended development plan for the Elan 1 neighborhood with opportunities for retail, services, and amenities that will serve the surrounding community, and it aligns with the city's overall planning and policy framework. Administration recommends that following the public hearing, Council gives bylaw 1066-25 second and third reading. This concludes my presentation. Administration welcomes questions from council on the application.
Thank you, Mr. Nowski. Appreciate that. With that, open up to members of council for clarifying questions for administration, but unofficially. All right. Councilor Natellenbus, you have the floor, followed by Councilor McCook. Nathan?
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question in regards to the presentation here. Under the compatibility of use with surrounding context, just looking for a little clarification as to what the buffering methods would be, or what we intend to do as buffering methods.
Thank you, Councilor Natellenbus. There are different methods to buffer development from surrounding buildings. Again, it's hard to kind of pin down what exactly the applicant's going to suggest at this point. That will be submitted when they submit their site plans for their development permit. However, methods commonly used are increasing setback distances from the property line. There's inclusion of landscaping like trees to sort of improve the sight lines between adjacent sites. And different ways to construct buildings so that, the way that you locate openings such as windows and doors are, offset to the adjacent windows and doors of adjacent properties. So there's many different ways to achieve this. The Development Authority assesses each application on its own merits at the time that it's received. So again, those are a few options that can be considered at that time.
Perfect, thank you. I guess maybe for a little more clarity, I'll repeat that question to the applicant at the time that's appropriate. It's just important, obviously, we lose any sense of control, obviously, once development permits are coming in, and we've approved or potentially approved this redistricting. So I just think it's important to get a little bit of insight as to what that may look like, where there could be affected homeowners. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question on the transportation impact analysis. So it was completed in 2018, and I know it states that we'll be monitoring as development occurs. Given the increase in population and commercial activity kind of since then and coming up, is there a plan to conduct another study soon, or what do we have looking forward? What's the timeline on that? I know that area and that intersection is already like quite congested during peak hours. So do we have any additional information for that?
Thank you for the question. Back last year during the preparation of the Elan 2 NSP, we did conduct a TIA at that time as well. Considering that intersection specifically related to the existing conditions, but as well as the future conditions. So we are aware of those that congestion and the intersection performance, and it is on the list essentially for improvements. Moving to signalization at the intersection would be the next step.
Okay, but we have no timelines kind of on what that will look like, or?
Nothing specific right now.
Okay.
I believe the TIA that was done last year did flag it as in the next 5 years. That was contingent on the school site at that location, so there might be a little bit of play in that, but yeah, administration is monitoring that intersection actively.
Okay, and I believe we touched on it during budget as well, but will like a roundabout also be considered? Or are we only looking at signal lights? Maybe I'm getting too deep here.
I might have to get back to you on that question. I'm not sure of what's being considered for that intersection at this point beyond signal lights. That was originally contemplated in the ASP NSP, and then in the TIA that was done last year as well. We did not look at roundabouts, so that was prior to budget discussions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions, members of Council of Administration, before I move into the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll begin the public hearing then. Is anybody from the public willing to or wanting to speak in favor of the bylaw who is in attendance this evening? Seeing none, anybody from the member of the public wishing to speak against the bylaw? Seeing none, anybody from the public who deems themselves to be affected by the bylaw wishes to speak? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, I'm going to declare the public hearing. Oh, Madam Clerk.
Mayor, I do want to confirm that the applicant is here and should have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing.
Okay. No problem. I thought we'd move second reading and then
No, the
ask
applicant,
questions.
the applicant speaks at the public hearing, Mayor.
Okay. Gentlemen? Or
If they
ma'am,
wish
I
to speak,
apologize.
or if council has any questions.
Why don't you join us at the table here, please? Thank you. And please state your name for the record, and then we can ascertain any questions we may have, any comments you wish to make as the applicant.
Sure, great. Thank you. My name is Emma Zorowell, and I'm here with Invistech Consulting on behalf of the applicant. Well, we are the applicant on behalf of the landowner.
Thank you. Do you have any comments you want to make to council before we have any council members with questions?
No,
If not, that's okay.
no, I don't have any specific comments, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions for the applicant representative? Councilor Tenlebus, Nathan, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. I guess I will go back to my first question, just in terms of if you have any idea as to what may be considered as some of those buffering methods, obviously to protect or eliminate any issues that may arise from adding commercial in close proximity to residential.
Yeah, absolutely. Through your worship to Councillor Nintellenboss, thank you for your question. The landowner does understand that the northern boundary is shared with existing residential lots. Throughout the development permit process, they're happy to work with the development authority, with the administration, to determine what buffering they may see as appropriate. Some of the options they can look at are fencing that might be a little bit higher to protect the northern landowners' yards, landscaping, as well as ensuring that the setbacks ensure that the buildings are far enough away from the adjacent yards.
Perfect, thank you. And just one more question, I guess. This may fall on administration, but also yourself. Just in terms of, I guess, expectations for aesthetic standards. Obviously, it's a plan that's still probably in motion in terms of what that development looks like, but just curious as to what is intended on the aesthetic design. Reason I'm asking, there's just been a lot of concerns raised with recent developments and kind of the design and the lack of aesthetics. So just want to make sure that that's a high priority for a development like this.
Yes, absolutely. At this time, there are no plans in place for the development, but as throughout the development permit process, the landowner is more than happy to work with administration to ensure that the development is complementary with the neighborhood.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Any further questions, members of council, for our presenter? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we go to the members. The public's already done, right? Just make sure I'm on track today. Hang on.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the applicant has now spoken. Council doesn't have any questions. You've already gone in favor and opposed, so now you can close the public hearing and we can move to second reading.
Thank you. Just to make sure we got procedure down right, so I declare the public hearing now closed. Thank you all for attending and appreciate the comments and questions from council. Madam Clerk, would you please put second reading motion on the screen? I'll make 2-5. Elan Neighborhood 1 East Commercial Parcel Land Use Bylaw. Amending bylaw be given second reading. With that, open up to the floor to members of council with questions or debating on second reading. Seeing none, thank you, council. Would you please initiate the voting process for second reading? Council, would you please vote? Thank you, council. That carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of second reading. For expediency purposes, I'll move for third reading, and then we can debate, we can then vote on third reading. I move that bylaw 1066-25 be given third reading. Discussion, members of council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please initiate? Oh, sorry, Nathan, I apologize. Councilor Talabas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. More so a comment just in regards to obviously the need, and I think we're all familiar with this, that Beaumont has for additional commercial establishments and development. So that's one of the reasons, obviously, I support it, knowing that obviously the administration as well as our planning and development will work closely with the developer to make sure that it's a good fit for the community and obviously complies with all of our LUB requirements.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate the comment. See no further comments. Council, would you please vote, issue the voting process, please, on third reading. Thank you, council. That carries unanimously. Also, 6-0 in favor of the motion for third reading. Thank you. Bylaw 1072-25, Assessment Review Board Bylaw, first, second, and third reading. It's already 7:20. We'll take a 10-minute break, come back at 7:30, and start fresh with 8.1 with all three readings this evening on that bylaw. We're in recess for 10 minutes, please. Good evening. We're back live after our break, beginning our rest of our agenda on item 8.1, bylaw 1072-25, Assessment Review Board Bylaw, first, second, and third reading. So before we go to Ms. Dargier for her presentation, just a little recap. We normally don't do 3 readings in one night. We don't have to, but the circumstance of this situation are time sensitive, and Ms. Dargier will explain that if she needs to in her presentation, but normally we try and do 3 readings, third reading on a different day, but if this was time sensitive, so we're going to get it done on 3 readings this evening. So Ms. Dargier, with that, I will turn over to you, please. Oh, hang on. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm Joanne Dargy, the Director of Legal and Legislative Services. I'm here to present Bylaw 1072-25, the proposed Assessment Review Board bylaw, and to seek Council's approval for the ARB agreement for 2025-2027 with the Capital Region Assessment Services Commission. I'm going to refer to them as the Commission from now on. It's just going to be a little bit easier. This bylaw establishes the Local Assessment Review Board and composite assessment review boards for the city as required under the Municipal Government Act. It also aligns Beaumont's assessment review process with the terms set out in the agreement with the Commission. Since 2010, Beaumont has participated in a Regional Assessment Review Board agreement with Leduc County. However, in 2024, Leduc County advised that they would not be renewing this agreement, and as a result, the city must establish its own ARB process. Given the low volume of assessment complaints that the city has received, 9 in the past 5 years, with only 2 proceeding to a hearing, administration has determined that maintaining a standalone municipal board would not be practical or efficient. Instead, like more than 70 municipalities, including cities like Spruce Grove and Fort Saskatchewan, who contract their ARB services to the Commission, administration feels that this approach ensures compliance with the MGA while leveraging an experienced service provider to handle assessment complaints. The bylaw and agreement include the following provisions: formal establishment of the local assessment and composite review boards in compliance with the MGA, selection of all panelists from the Commission's accredited pool, ensuring qualified members, annual appointment by this Council of the panelists, chair, and clerk based on the Commission's recommendations, standardized procedures for filing complaints, including fees aligned with other municipalities using the Commission services, a compensation model for Commission services, including an annual core fee, per parcel fees, and hearing-related costs, and repeal of the existing Assessment Review Board bylaw to ensure alignment with legislative and operational requirements. Fees and expenses associated with the Commission providing their services are outlined in Schedule A of the agreement and include annual participation fees and per hearing charges. The city's fees and charges bylaw will also be updated to align Beaumont's complaint fees with those of other municipalities using the Commission. Beaumont's Assessment Review Board members that had been appointed to the Leduc Regional Assessment Review Board have already been notified that administration is proposing to contract its ARB services to the Commission. Should those members wish to continue serving on an assessment review board, they can apply to the Commission to be added to the Commission's pool of panelists. The city is legally required to establish a local assessment and composite review boards. Failing to do so in a timely manner could leave the city unable to administer assessment complaints in compliance with provincial law. To assist property owners, the city's website will be updated with revised fee information and guidance on how to file an assessment complaint. This bylaw and agreement provide a cost-effective, compliant, and efficient solution for handling assessment complaints while ensuring access to qualified panelists and administrative support. At this time, administration is requesting that Council give 3 readings to Bylaw 1072-25 to establish Beaumont's local and composite assessment review boards, authorize the Mayor to sign the ARB agreement for 2025 to 2027, appoint the following individuals to the City's Assessment Review Board for 2025 for the Assessment Review Board, Clerk Gerald Amarin, the Chair Raymond Ralph, and panelists Darlene Chartron, Cheryl Exley, Tina Groshko, Richard Knowles, Marcel LeBlanc, and Raymond Ralph. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from Council.
Thank you, Ms. Dargy. Members of Council with questions. Councillor Penrod. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Appreciate the report and the creativity from administration finding a way forward here. Now that we don't have our former dance partner, good to see that we're able to have some regional collaboration in another way. Hopefully, if not save some money, then at least kind of retain costs, which these days, if you can keep your costs the same, that's like saving money. I'm looking at the report under item 4, obligations of the participant. Actually, I think I'm looking at the contract, not the report. Understanding that if we move through all 3 readings tonight, then the contract we're entering into applies retroactive to January 1, if my memory serves correctly. There is a clause in 4A that Beaumont would need to communicate certain information to the commission by February 15th. Just wondering what steps have been taken to address that timeframe.
We have been in contact with the commission, and they're aware of the timeline that we're bringing the bylaw and the agreement forward.
Great, thank you. And with respect to the fees and expenses outlined in Schedule A, which is page 125 of our report, just wondering how these costs compare to the costs under our former arrangement. Not looking for exact dollars and cents, but in general.
Could you hold on for just 1 second? I do have the agreement with the City of Leduc. Just let me check. Thank you for the question, Councillor Penrod. So from my understanding with the agreement with Leduc County, it was a sliding fee, and it was also based on actual costs. So whatever costs were incurred were billed back to the city. There will be an increase to the fees, which is why we've also increased our fees for the complaints. It won't be 100% recoverable, but based on the number of complaints that the city does receive, we don't expect there to be a significant impact.
Thank you. Appreciate the attention to those details.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Telebus, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, thank you for putting together this presentation. Appreciate it and all the information that comes with it. Just a quick question. Obviously, we're having to make a change and an adjustment, and we're bound by this requirement. Just wondering if there are alternatives to CRASC, which we've chosen as a partner here, and if so, how come we went this route versus potentially another?
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Councillor Tellenbos. We did look at another opportunity. It was explored with the County of Strathcona to see if we could enter into a regional assessment review board with them. And part of the reason for us bringing this so late to council is that they didn't get back to us until quite late last year, letting us know that they wouldn't be able to take us on as part of a regional assessment review board. We were then looking for another opportunity, and Fort Saskatchewan let us know that they use this service and that it was quite efficient. When we looked into it, it seemed like a good opportunity for us. Again, to reiterate the presentation, it's not cost effective for the city to have its own assessment review board, given the number of complaints that we receive and the training that's required for the board members. So the commission has all of that already all set up. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the report. You answered one part of my question, that was the training, because I was pretty sure there would be. The other question I have is the members of the commission. How are they chosen, and are Beaumontians eligible to become members of this commission? What's the process for that?
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart, for that question. So I'm not sure how the panelists are chosen. They can make application. I'm not sure what qualifications they look at, what the commission looks at, but they do have to attend training and become qualified members according to the MGA. And yes, Beaumont individuals can apply to the commission to be part of the panelist pool. They would be provided all of the training, the necessary training, and then could be assigned to a municipality.
Just if I could, Mayor, just further on that, the names that are here then, these are the names of the entire commission? There's no other folks on the commission? These are the people that are currently on the commission now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions from members of council for administration's report, Madam Clerk, would you please put motion for first reading on the screen? I'll make that motion and go to another councillor for the second reading motion when we get to it. Thank you. I move that bylaw 1072-25, Assessment Review Board bylaw, be given first reading. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process? Council, would you please vote on first reading? Kathy?
I'm missing.
Yeah, I see you doing it, but I don't want to assume which side of the screen you're on.
For that time to see if 6 o'clock.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor. That carries unanimously 6-0 in favor of first reading. Is there a member of council willing to move the motion for second reading? Councillor Van Newkirk, you have the floor, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd move that bylaw 1072-25 be given second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Wish to speak to your motion, or you're good?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? See none. Thank you. Would you please initiate the voting process for second reading, please? Thank you, Council. That carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of second reading. Now, because we're looking at doing third reading the same evening, give me 1 second here to pull up my screen now. Where did I have it here? We need a motion to be considered for third reading. I'll move that bylaw 1072-25 be considered for third reading. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for consideration of third reading? Council, would you please vote? And that carries unanimously. Also 6-0 in favor of consideration for third reading. With that, for expediency purposes, I will move when third reading is on the screen. I'll move that bylaw 1072-25 be given third reading. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for third reading? Thank you, Council. That carries unanimously. Also 6-0 in favor of third reading. And with this particular bylaw, we need to go one more step in the motion process. Would you please, Madam Clerk? Yeah. For expediency purposes, I'll continue moving on that I move that the following individuals be appointed to the city, the first one I need to do first. That the mayor, on behalf of council, execute the ARB agreement 2025-2027, the Capital Region Assessment Services Commission, and I move that the following individuals be appointed to the City of Beaumont Assessment Review Board for 2025 term. Gerald Orman, Capital Region Assessment Services Commission as Assessment Review Board Clerk. Raymond Ralph as Chair of Assessment Review Board, and Darlene Chartrand, Cheryl Exley, Tina Grosco, Richard Knowles, Marcel LeBlanc, and Raymond Ralph be panelists of the Assessment Review Board. Discussion on the motion, members of council. Seeing none, I will request then we initiate the voting process for these motions in association with the bylaw. Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening, item 8.2, bylaw 1071-25, land use bylaw, amending bylaw, Innovation Park, first reading. Ms. Sharp, I believe you're presenting this evening. Let me get your microphone on. And it is on, when you're ready, please, Ms. Sharp.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Yasmin Sharp, Senior Development Planner, and I will be presenting bylaw 1071-25, land use bylaw amending bylaw for Council's consideration. The Innovation Park is poised to become a unique industrial and commercial employment center that includes uses that have not otherwise been developed within the City of Beaumont or the surrounding region. As a result, the current version of the land use bylaw is not equipped to facilitate developments planned by the Alberta Motor Transport Association, or AMTA, which I will refer to them moving forward. The purpose of bylaw 1071-25 is to amend the text of the land use bylaw to allow development to proceed as planned for the Innovation Park Area Structure Plan. The amendment includes the addition of 2 new uses, new use standards within the Business Light Industrial District, parking regulations for the new uses, and a revision to the government use definition. The majority of the uses intended by AMTA are already contemplated within the City of Beaumont Land Use Bylaw. For example, the multidisciplinary campus may include office use, as well as fleet vehicle storage and a maintenance garage, both of which would fall under the existing industrial light use. As a result, the Innovation Park only requires 2 new uses. First, Emergency Service Training Facility, which is defined as a development used to support specialized protective and emergency service training, including an indoor firing range and protective service exercises and simulations. In the definition, there are several points that focus on what is not included. This is to define clear parameters, for example, no outdoor firing range, and to ensure that local public agencies such as police, fire, and ambulances are able to locate and train outside of the Innovation Park. The second use is Motor Vehicle Training and Research Facility, which is defined as a paved motor vehicle course specifically designed, constructed, and maintained for training, research, and testing of motor vehicles. This does not include recreational or professional racing. Both of these uses are proposed to only be able to locate within the Innovation Park area. In developing the proposed amendments, administration was guided by 5 key objectives. First, enabling the Innovation Park to develop as intended and accommodate the uses planned by AMTA. Second, establish site regulations that minimize off-site impacts. This includes potential visual noise or smell nuisances, and promote a high aesthetic standard. Third, restrict the new uses from locating outside of the Innovation Park where they would be incompatible with surrounding development. Balance the flexibility necessary to facilitate innovation while also establishing clear limitations on what cannot be developed within the Innovation Park area. The 2 examples already provided was recreational racing and outdoor shooting range. And finally, maintain the ability for local public services, such as fire, police, and ambulance, to be established and engage in training outside of the Innovation Park. Bylaw 1071-25 is limited to amending the text of the land use bylaw. A separate redistricting application is required to change the Innovation Park land use from agricultural holdings to business light industrial. This is an applicant responsibility, and additional studies may be required to support the redistricting application. For example, as part of the area structure plan, a biophysical assessment was conducted over the entire plan area in order to delineate wetlands and identify wildlife species of special status, among other ecological features. This provides the first layer of investigation and outlines more specific areas that warrant further study. For instance, as Mr. Monica identified as part of the area structure plan bylaw discussion, a natural area assessment is necessary to assess the water balance requirement for maintaining the existing wetlands on the east quarter section of the plan area. This is recommended for the redistricting or subdivision application stage, since it would be affected by several developments and should be conducted at a time when the planned use for the area is further understood. In contrast, a noise impact assessment may be more appropriate at the development permit stage. It is more specific to a particular development, for example, required as part of the driving track permit application. The amending bylaw was circulated to adjacent municipalities, internal departments, external agencies, and landowners within the Innovation Park plan area, and no comments or concerns were received. A public hearing and second and third reading are tentatively scheduled for March 11th. Following first reading, administration will advertise the proposed bylaw in the local newspaper, place an ad on our website, and send notifications to adjacent landowners and affected parties. Administration is recommending that bylaw 1071-25, a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw, be given first reading. Administration is available to answer any clarifying questions that council has on the bylaw at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Appreciate the presentation. Any clarifying questions from members of council before I ask the motion for first reading? Councilor Natelambas. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. Again, thanks for the presentation. Appreciate it. I guess just a general question in regards to isolating this change in bylaw specifically to the Innovation Park. Just wondering what that looks like and how we can just focus it on that area versus potentially putting ourselves in a scenario where a bunch of these are going up in different areas.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Natellenboss. So this is done in two ways. First, it's identified as a discretionary use in the business light industrial district, and it is unpermitted in all other districts. Secondly, there's been regulations added to the business light industrial district that specifically state that these uses are only allowed within the Innovation Park area structure plan. So for that reason, it would be very transparent to anyone looking to do this use that it would be limited to this area. It's explicitly said and not just as a discretionary use at the discretion of administration.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate the clarification question. Seeing no further questions or clarification from members of council, would you please put, Madam Clerk, motion for first reading on the screen, please? Land use bylaw, amending bylaw Innovation Park, a bylaw to amend bylaw Innovation Park, a bylaw to amend bylaw 944-19, our zoning blueprint, land use bylaw be given first reading. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process, please? Council, would you please vote on first reading? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. 6-0 in favor of first reading. Thank you. Next on our agenda, it was taken off 3-25, Municipal Policing Community Bylaw. Jay, will you be presenting before I go to Council? Thank you, Ms. Darjay. Oh, hang on. There you go. I had turned it on, number 10,
Yep,
right?
there we go.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm still Joanne Dargy. I'm still the Director of Legal and Legislative Services, and I'm here to present Bylaw 1073-25, the Municipal Policing Committee Bylaw for Council's consideration. Recent amendments to the Police Act require all Alberta municipalities that receive RCMP policing services under a Municipal Police Service Agreement to establish a Municipal Policing Committee by March 1st, 2025. The proposed bylaw ensures compliance with this legislative requirement while also formalizing local input on policing matters. Beaumont currently has an RCMP Community Advisory Committee, which serves as a forum for discussions between the RCMP and community representatives. However, because it was not established by bylaw, it does not meet the new legal requirements for the municipal policing governance. Given Beaumont's population and governance structure, the new regulations require the city to establish an MPC. The bylaw establishes the Municipal Policing Committee as a council committee with the following mandate: to oversee the administration of the Police Services Agreement, ensuring alignment with municipal priorities, representing public and council interests in discussions with the RCMP's officer in charge, developing an annual policing plan outlining priorities and strategies in collaboration with the RCMP, creating a community safety plan engaging local agencies and stakeholders to enhance public safety, assisting in selecting the officer in charge when this position is vacant, providing reports to the minister on policing priorities, programs, and services, and appointing a public complaint director who will oversee complaints against the RCMP officers. Key elements of the bylaw is that the committee will consist of one council member and up to 6 public members, all appointed by council. At the suggestion of legal counsel, the bylaw is silent on appointing a youth member to the committee. Council can make the determination of whether to appoint a community youth to the committee once member applications are received. Non-voting advisory members include the Beaumont RCMP officer in charge and the CAO or his designate. All members must pass an enhanced security check and adhere to a code of conduct. Following discussion at Committee of the Whole, the bylaw includes direction for the committee to consider the experience and qualifications of the person being considered for the Public Complaints Director position, having regard to a background in law enforcement or policing. Members, except for the council representative, will receive an honorarium of $30 per meeting in accordance with the city's board and committee member appreciation policy. The province will cover the initial enhanced security check costs, but ongoing checks will be a city expense. To ensure community awareness of this committee, administration will publicly advertise committee membership opportunities following passage of this bylaw. At this time, administration requests that council give 3 readings to bylaw 1073-25 to formally establish the Municipal Policing Committee and appoint Councillor Natellenbos as the council representative effective March 1st, 2025. That concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions from council.
Thank you, Ms. Darjay. Councillor Penrod, you pulled it off consent. I assume you have some questions, so you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate the report, Ms. Darji. First of all, just want to comment and say thank you to administration for the work that's been done to incorporate feedback received from Committee of the Whole. Definitely see it in there, and always feels good to know that the process is unfolding as it should. I know I was going to make a joke, but my kids keep reminding me I'm not funny, so I'll avoid that. I just want to get clear on how we end up today needing to move through all 3 readings. And I understand that that's, we're learning that that's not always a bad thing, and that it, sometimes it's just the order of things that needs to happen. I understand that the legislation, the provincial legislation, the Police Act, has changed, and that those most recent changes took effect upon proclamation December 2022. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Penrod. So the police, it's a bit complicated. The Police Amendment Act 2022 was given royal assent. However, it was not proclaimed in force.
Okay.
Certain sections were proclaimed in force in May, and those were incorporated into the Police Act. There were still remaining sections that had not been proclaimed in force. Additional sections were proclaimed in force at the end of 2024, which provided for the requirements for this Municipal Policing Committee. There are certain amendments under the Police Amendment Act that are still not proclaimed in force. We were not aware of the changes or the sections that were proclaimed in force at the end of the year initially, and so the information came to us late, and we were having to do this very quickly.
Thank you. Appreciate the transparency on that. If I could just restate it, make sure that I understand. When the government passes new legislation or an amendment of existing legislation, in some ways they're giving kind of a 10,000-foot view of what they intend to do. And then in our process, that gets debated and eventually takes effect, receives royal assent. But then the rubber can't meet the road until it goes to the minister's office, and the minister starts deciding how to roll out all the changes that are going to need to take place under the new legislation. Is that a fair summary of how these things work?
It's fair summary, yeah. I mean, it's an order in council that would proclaim the sections or the act in force. Often, they will, provincial legislation will be passed, regulations will follow. Often, the provincial legislation will be given royal assent while they do the regulations, and that was what happened with the Police Act. The Police Amendment Act was given royal assent. They established some regulations, and then were able to proclaim certain other sections into force. Yeah.
So in this case, part of what you're dealing with is getting this kind of continuing communication from the province that says, okay, we've got this piece achieved, now here comes the next set of regulations. Oh, by the way, we need them last Thursday.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do have a question on the bylaw in particular, but I'll save that until after first reading, Mayor.
Okay. Good enough. So have we moved first reading?
We haven't yet, but
No. City of Beaumont Municipal Policing Committee bylaw be given first reading. Question, Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. This one I can keep brief. I'm looking at page 142 of the overall agenda for tonight. And I'm specifically looking at the clause 15, termination, item D. And I'm wondering if item D, which says one of the reasons that council could choose to remove a member of the committee would be D, for publicly disclosing any information provided to the member or to the committee in confidence, or any information that, if made public, could jeopardize RCMP operations. Is there something in the legislation or the regulations that requires that particular clause?
Through the mayor, to Councillor Penrod, the legislation only states that council may remove a member of committee for cause. When I consulted legal counsel on this particular clause, it was suggested and recommended that we provide reasons for cause to provide some guidance to council.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And this is a work in progress. So, Mayor, I'm going to suggest an amendment because, just for clarity's sake, I think actually item D is redundant.
Hang on, Councillor Penrod. Madam Clerk, yours to jump in on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Procedurally wise, we would give first reading, and then after we could do a motion to amend prior to second reading for this.
Sorry, I thought we had just moved first reading.
We've moved it, but we have not voted on it yet.
Pardon me.
Vote on it yet.
Pardon me. I got ahead of myself.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll, see no further questions on first reading. Would you please initiate the process for voting on first reading, please? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of first reading. Do we now move second reading, and then we can make any amendments at second reading? Madam Clerk, or we do any amendments first? What is the best way to proceed, please?
Councillor Penrod could put his motion forward if he wishes to.
Okay, Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. So just to continue on my thought now that I'm actually in order, just in my reading of the termination clause, cause for dismissal from the committee would be violating the code of conduct, this bylaw, or the Police Act. Our code of conduct, what's listed later in the report, under items 1, 5, 6, and 10, covers off all of the pieces mentioned in D, with the exception of.
Okay, councilors, are you making a motion?
Yep, so I'm prepared to make a motion to amend, and I think we have that.
Madam Clerk, when you're ready, please. Make your motion, Councillor, please.
So I move that bylaw 1073-25, Municipal Policing Committee bylaw, be amended by striking out section 15D.
Thank you. Please speak to your motion, and I'll entertain questions from members of council.
Yep, so just to reiterate, I think D is redundant. It is already covered in item B.
Thank you. Members of council wish to discuss this motion, this amending motion? Councillor Nantellenbos. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick clarification, hoping to get from Councillor Penrod. You did mention that throughout, obviously, the B portions of violating the code of conduct, this bylaw, or the Police Act did not capture information that, if made public, could jeopardize our CMP operations. Am I correct?
Councillor Penrod?
Yeah, I think that would be the narrowest reading of it. I think that piece would be covered under the Police Act, but I'm not super versed on the Police Act, so I could stand corrected by administration on that, or any of my colleagues that know the Police Act better.
And I guess next question to you, by removing this, do you feel that it will provide any benefit?
I just think in all bylaws, there's benefit in having the bylaw as lean as possible, just for clarity's sake. So I think the intention, this is why I started with a question. So administration said that we've already gotten a bit more granular than what the legislation requires on advice from our legal counsel, which I think we always want to listen to. But in this case, I think item D isn't required.
Thank you, Councillor. I won't be supporting this motion. I trust the lawyers we've already consulted with, and I trust the lawyers' opinion on this matter, so I won't be supporting this amendment. Oh, sorry, Councillor Barnhart, I just saw your hand go up just now, followed by Councilman Newkirk. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
I think Ms. Dozier, you wanted to say something first, or?
I thought your mic was on.
Oh, my mic's just been on.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I won't be supporting it either. I like the clarity that Dee provides. I myself wouldn't have thought to go and read the Police Act to find that particular piece, so I'm just feeling that it doesn't hurt to have it there. So I think I'll side with you, Mayor, on that one. I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Newkirk, followed by Councillor McCook. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, chalk me into the same category as the mayor and Councillor Barnhart. I do understand Councillor Penrod's line of thought. I don't necessarily disagree with that line of thought, but I do know that we've paid lawyers to look after this, and I don't think it hurts to have item D in there for clarity. So, yeah, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor.
I think similar, especially what it outlines. Edmund, do we know if it is explicit in the Police Act?
It is not.
It is not. Okay. Thank you. That clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot, last comment before I go to the vote. Nathan, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. I align with my colleagues here. Just another reason why is it also mentions if you cease to be a Beaumont resident, which is actually captured in this bylaw too. So if we were to follow that strategy, we should strike that one out as well. But given the fact that we've used the professionals to put this together, I'm going to support how it stands right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod, a final comment before I go to the vote. If you wish a final comment. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please initiate the voting process on this amendment?
This is on the amendment.
This is on the amendment, correct. The motion is defeated 5-1. Motion is defeated. Voting in favor, Councillor Penrod. Thank you. Motion is defeated on the amendment. We'll now go to second reading of the bylaw. Is that me? No. Weird. Okay. Would you please put second reading on the screen, please? Councillor Newkirk, would you care to move second reading, please?
Yes, I'd move that bylaw 1073-25 be given second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for second reading, please? That carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of second reading. Thank you, Council. Let me just get my screen up here again. I just went down on me. Give me 1 second. As we're doing 3 readings this evening, our next motion is to give consideration for a third reading. I move that bylaw 1073-25 be considered for second reading. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, would you please initiate the voting process? Would you please vote for consideration of third reading? Also carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of the motion for consideration of third reading. I'll now move to a member of Council willing to move third reading of the bylaw. Councillor Tellenbus, would you make that motion, please?
I move that bylaw 1073-25 be given third reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for third reading of the bylaw? That carries unanimously. Also 6-0 in favor of third reading. Thank you, Council. Next on our agenda, we have Councillor inquiries.
Mayor, we do have one more motion for this one.
Oh, my mistake, Madam Clerk. Thank you. My screen collapsed on me there. Hang on a second. I'll move, please, that effective March 1, 2025, Councilman Tellenbus be appointed to Municipal Policing Committee pursuant to bylaw 1073-25. Councilor Tellenbus, would you care to speak to it, or you're good?
I'm good.
Sorry, I'm just pulling your leg. Okay, same discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for this additional motion on the bylaw? That carries unanimously also, 6-0. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for catching that. Next on our councillor inquiries this evening, Madam Clerk.
3 councillor inquiries this evening.
Okay, Councillor Nantalamas, I believe you have first dibs on the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to put forward the councillor inquiry, to please provide information on the considerations and associated costs in preparing a land use bylaw amendment to amend the use standards medical cannabis section to prohibit cannabis production and selling licenses within 100 meters of daycares and after/out-of-school cares.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe the second one, I believe. Make it when you're ready, please.
Perfect, thank you. In addition to the councillor inquiry that Councillor Penrod had put forward, I would just also like that we please provide information on whether the snow and ice service level review that's being conducted this year will include comparisons with other similar sized municipalities to include things such as staff, equipment, and schedules.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe we have a third inquiry this evening, and it's from Councillor Barnhart. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. Please provide information on whether administration will be bringing back a report to council regarding the arts operating in major grant programs, and if so, will the report include the following, excuse me, addressing lessons learned, improvements made and or recommendations for improvements, performance measurement, and any proposed adjustments to the application process.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Are there any further councillor inquiries? I believe there's just the 3 reports from many members of council this evening. Thank you. With that, next on our agenda is CU update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. You'll see estimated that we had about 750 people attend, so that's pretty cool. As I reported prior, Fortis Alberta sponsored some drop-in at the BSRC. They had about 214 people took advantage of that. And Kin Kindness Day was set up at the BSRC on February 22nd from 12 to 2, and they had about 10 family passes to give out in a draw, and I understand it was well attended as well. Infrastructure, February 18th, we've completed 1 full sweep of residential, so that's all of the priority levels, and just in time for the melt. And it's very important to get that snow out of there for when we get to these soupy conditions and we have drainage problems and storm drains that are frozen. So well done, everybody. The transit ridership, you can see the numbers as we expected. They're climbing after a little bit of a decrease from December. It's normal. I won't go through the details of that, but you can see it on the paper. And from our Legend Legal Services, there has been some recent changes to the provincial legislation requiring residents to register before voting in a municipal election. So beginning March 1st, the city's election webpage will have that link included. Residents are encouraged to get out and register to vote. The provincial budget, as we all know, will be released on Thursday afternoon. Communications, Finance, and LLNS will analyze the budget and assess it and the impacts to us. It's important to note that typically they release a capital budget, but it lacks any type of detail. So the notion of us expecting a school site or servicing or any of those details will start to trickle out later on, usually in weeks following, sometimes days. Alberta Munis is hosting a webinar on the budget Friday afternoon, so if you want to take part in that, please do so. And I did want to talk about 2 new businesses that just opened in our community, and one was the Co-op Gas Bar, opened up yesterday, and the other is Mayan's Noodle House. So they're now open, both on the south side, so we welcome them to Beaumont and urge everyone to check them out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Appreciate that. Members of council, any questions for our CEO Schwartz on his report? Seeing no questions, thank you, council. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Next on our agenda is correspondence. Madam Clerk, any correspondence this evening? Not aware of any council this evening. None? All right, last item on our agenda. So with that, that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. And with that, we are adjourned at 8:15. Thank you and enjoy your evening. Shalane, you got a second? We can talk for a second? Thanks.